April 17th, 2024, I Googled bicycle and died. This is what I found. On July 7th, Brian Barbosa was biking to his friend's house near the intersection of Whitehead and Russell Avenues. Michael Arena, 64, was driving a white work van when he struck the boy. He fled the scene and was arrested later that day at his home.
A horrific scene tonight in New Jersey. A teenager on a bike run just run down and killed by a van, and that driver just kept on going. It happened in the Middlesex County borough of South River.
You're looking at video of the last seconds of a teenager's life as he crossed the street on his bike, a white van swerving behind him. We won't show you the rest. The victim was very clearly alive after the first impact as he lay in front of the van, and the driver decided to hit the gas.
I have a shot of the kid on his forearms looking at the van right before it went over him. And every bit of my hair just stood right up on my arms.
First responders arrived in minutes, and neighbors watched in horror as they performed CPR on the boy for what seemed like forever.
He was 14 years old and lived in the neighborhood, was about to enter his freshman year in high school. Tonight, his football coach showed up here to light candles in his memory.
On December 8th, 2023, Arena pled guilty to knowingly leaving the scene of a motor vehicle crash resulting in death and vehicular homicide. On April 10th, the judge noted his 14 previous vehicle-related convictions, including 7 involving driving under the influence, and sentenced him to 15 years in prison. Upon his release, his driver's license will be suspended for 1 year. Brian was an only child. His parents are understandably devastated. On January 15th at 6:30 p.m., Nathan Harris, 47, fell off his bike.
On just about any given day, the intersection of US 41 and Bee Ridge Road is a parade of traffic. Harris, who is homeless, was walking his bike from one side of the road to the other when a driver smashed into him, not stopping and fleeing the scene. Garza is raising money to help the family bring Nathan home.
Now, our main concern is if there's any way possible to try to get our son back home, that the family can see him for the last time and show their respects and mourn together, and get closure.
Several cars paused and allowed him to get back on. Brandon Michael Abel, 29, was driving an F-150 in the southbound lanes. He appeared to not see Harris, drove over him, and continued on from the scene. He later said it felt like a small bump, a pothole, but nothing big. Police officers used red light cameras and Snapchat to place him at the scene of the crash. On April 11th, Abel was arrested and charged with leaving the scene of a traffic crash resulting in a death.
For the Sarasota Police Department arrested 29-year-old Brandon Abel on Wednesday, saying he was the person behind the wheel when Harris took his last breaths.
The night of the crash, we were able to view those cameras and get a tag, which led us to the vehicle and the registered owner.
Abel didn't make any effort to reach out to law enforcement after the crash, instead deciding to flee the scene.
Mr. Abel could have stopped. He chose not to. And that's why we're here. That's why he's in trouble.
Abel initially telling detectives he thought he ran over a shopping cart, but traffic cameras capturing him returning back to the scene minutes after the accident, where he could see multiple emergency vehicles responding.
There have been at least 3 bicyclists killed in Sarasota County this year. Sarasota County is the second deadliest county for cyclists in the United States. On March 26th at 10:30 a.m., James Mills, 67, was hit by the driver of a semi-flatbed truck. On March 31st, he died from his injuries. On April 10th, a vigil was held and a ghost bike was placed where he was killed. Other drivers say that they had the green light when Mills biked in front of them. No word if charges will be filed. On March 31st at 5:45, Douglas York, 72, was biking south on Samara Drive. It was Easter Sunday when a driver of a 2017 Honda HR-V made contact with York. On April 11th, York succumbed to his injuries. He is survived by his 3 children, a granddaughter, and 5 siblings. On April 3rd at 3 p.m., Charles Henry Folk, 77, was riding his bike on Highway 64 when a hit-and-run driver killed him. On April 13th, Jessica Dawn Simpson, 34, was charged with fatal hit and run after South Carolina Highway Patrol troopers said she struck Folk while driving her 2017 Nissan Rogue. Folk is survived by his 4 children, 4 grandchildren, 3 sisters, an uncle, and many cousins, nieces, and nephews. On April 8th at 9:25 a.m., Vlad Zotov, 59, a member of the Morning Glory Cycling Club, was biking on Bayview Avenue in Toronto when a man, 38, was driving a 2023 Ford Bronco Sport. He exited the Don Valley Parkway to proceed northbound on Bayview Avenue when he collided with the northbound cyclist. On April 15th, hundreds gathered to ride and install a ghost bike in memoriam. Vlad was survived by his wife, 4 children, and a granddaughter. He was the 3rd cyclist killed in Toronto in 2024. On April 10th at 9 p.m., Timothy Mark Eaker, age 59, was riding a bicycle on eastbound North Carolina 182. He was likely just a mile from home when K. Justice Cook, also 59, of Lawndale, was driving a 2016 Jeep Cherokee when she struck him. Newspaper accounts say Eaker was not wearing any reflective clothing and had no lights on his bike. The initial investigation does not indicate impairment or speed as contributing factors. He was killed practically across the road from the church he attended and where his funeral was held. No charges are expected to be filed in this case. On April 11th at 8:45 p.m. in Wilmington, California, in Los Angeles County, Junior Valley, 28, was biking on West G Street and Wilmington Boulevard. He was killed by a hit-and-run driver. He was the 3rd Los Angeles County cyclist killed in 2024. All were killed by hit-and-run drivers. On April 12th at 10:30 a.m. in Brookings, South Dakota, Molly Ann Yoder, 16, was biking on the sidewalk of Main Street approaching 4th Street on her way to work at a tea shop. Tammy Varpness, a 46-year-old school bus driver with the Brookings School District, was traveling east on 4th Street. She turned right onto Main and hit Molly. At last report, Varpness has not been charged. Molly is survived by her parents, both sets of grandparents, 7 siblings, and 7 nieces and nephews. On April 12th at 2 p.m., Donald Jim Badger, 63, was riding his bicycle on the sidewalk when a 32-year-old Naples woman driving an SUV exited the shopping center, made a right turn onto eastbound Immokalee Road when she collided with Badger. She had 2 male children in her car. All were uninjured.
Florida Highway Patrol says just before 2 p.m. today, an SUV was leaving the shopping center, just like this one right here, and it hit a man who was riding his bike along the sidewalk to where today's deadly accident happened along Immokalee Road. Investigators kept picking up the bike and putting it in different places on the street, trying to figure out what happened.
They had to shut Immokalee Road for a couple of hours just to clear the body and get everything cleaned up so that they can get ongoing traffic going again.
Her customers were stuck in the shopping center for hours.
Now it's 6 o'clock. It's been 3 hours on the road.
We were literally just shopping and we tried to leave, but we can't even leave to go home.
It's lined up with cars, just kind of everyone's out of their cars talking to other cars, and
there's nobody
knows what's going on.
Tonight, Florida Highway Patrol can confirm that a 63-year-old man who was riding his bike just like this person is doing on the sidewalk is the one who died. An SUV that was leaving Logan Landing Shopping Center hit him when turning right on Immokalee Road. A 32-year-old woman and 9-year-old boy were in the SUV.
There really isn't a bike lane over here, now I think about it. No bike lane. Wow. Especially on Immokalee.
State troopers are continuing to investigate to determine whose fault it was for this crash. Both passengers in the SUV are okay.
Jim is survived by his wife Jane of 36 years, 4 children, 2 grandsons, and 6 siblings. The previous Naples cyclist death was 8 days earlier, on April 4th. On April 13th at 4:15 p.m. in Cumming, Georgia, Victor Godin, 71, was hit and killed by Matthew Holbrook, 48, who was driving a 1994 Chevy C1500 pickup. Holbrook hit Godin as he biked across the intersection. He is charged with vehicular homicide and driving under the influence of drugs. In February 2021, a pedestrian was killed on the same road. April 13th at 8:14 p.m. in Azalea Park, Florida, a part of Orlando, a man, 29, was biking across Goldenrod Road when he was hit by a 68-year-old driving a Honda Odyssey on the outside lane and a 62-year-old driving a GMC Sierra on the inside lane. Both drivers hit him. The drivers are uninjured. The bicyclist is dead. On April 14th at 10:29 a.m. in Houston, Texas, Adrian Combs, 43, was hit by Douglas Smith, 60, who was driving a 1995 green Chevy truck. Smith phoned 911 and remained on the scene. Adrian, a triathlete, is survived by his parents, his younger brother Cody, and his wife Shayla of 17 years. On April 14th at nearly 10 p.m. in Modesto, California, a woman, 49, was riding a BMX bike westbound on Highway 132. An Amtrak train was traveling north just south of Highway 132. The woman rode across the crossing gate arms and onto the railway. The train hit the woman. It's quite likely she was homeless and or on drugs. On April 15th at 2:30 p.m. in Springfield, Missouri, Renee Griffith Grantham, 34 years old, and an adjunct theology professor at Evangel University and track and cross-country coach at New Covenant Academy in Springfield, was training for a triathlon. She was hit on Highway YY, also known as East Division Street, the street where she lived, just east of Springfield. Troopers say the crash happened when she failed to yield to a GMC Yukon and was hit. Renee is survived by her parents and her husband, Mark. Renee and Mark met in 2019 when he sought her help in creating a video that would better express his faith. He had suffered an injury in 2006 that had paralyzed him from the chest down. He then became a motivational Christian speaker. On April 15th at 9:30 p.m. in Houston, Texas, a bicyclist was killed by at least 3 vehicles while crossing State Highway 288. He crossed near Bin Street when he was almost hit by an 18-wheeler. He fell off his bike and was trying to get back up, and he was hit by at least 3 cars. All 3 drivers stopped at the scene. 2 of them were taken to the hospital with minor injuries. It's very likely that this person was experiencing homelessness. April 16th at 12:30 a.m. in Louisville, Kentucky, Jennifer Lynn Davis, 39, was biking east of the Louisville International Airport when she was hit by the driver of a black pickup truck who failed to stop. 36-year-old Juan Alcala called later to say he had been involved in a crash there. He is charged with murder, driving under the influence, aggravated, wanton endangerment, and driving with no insurance. As a bonus, this is Taylor Humphreys. She was arrested at 3:30 a.m. for nearly running down officers investigating that fatal hit and run. April 16th at 3:30 p.m. in Modesto, California, a man dies after running onto Highway 99 in Stanislaus County. He was pushing a bicycle. He ran from the east shoulder of the road in front of a Volvo sedan. The Volvo driver was not injured. The man pushing the bike is dead. It's quite likely this man was experiencing homelessness and was living on the side of the highway. On April 16th at 5:37 p.m. in Mansfield, Ohio, a man was killed while riding his bicycle eastbound on West 1st Street. He was 29. The driver of the tractor-trailer truck was 48. Police say the man biking ran the red light at the intersection of South Main Street and biked into the path of the semi. The truck driver suffered no injuries, but was transported to a local hospital for evaluation. The man biking is dead. Please note the businesses surrounding this area. On April 17th at 1:55 a.m., in Harrisburg, Illinois, a cyclist was biking south on U.S. Route 45. The driver of a 2019 Buick Encore was also driving south on U.S. Route 45. The Buick driver reportedly hit the cyclist and suffered no injuries. The cyclist was pronounced dead at the scene. On April 17th at 2 p.m., in Vancouver, British Columbia, a cyclist was killed by the driver of a silver Dodge Ram pickup truck. The crash happened at Clark Street and East 11th Avenue. The truck driver suffered no injuries. The man biking is dead. On April 17th at 9:15 p.m. in Camden, Delaware, Gregory Robinson, 52, was biking across Old Camden Road at South DuPont Highway when a woman, 22, was driving a 2015 Nissan Altima. Police say the bicyclist crossed directly in front of the Nissan. The driver was not injured. The bicyclist died.